Good to see everyone this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our pre-meeting, April the 29th, 2025. We're now in the hands of our City Clerk, Ms. Lisa Carroll.
This is the pre-meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, April the 29th. We have approval of minutes from April 22nd.
Any issues, anyone? Okay.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on August 23rd from 10 a.m. until 4 p.m. in Cathedral Square. November 16th from 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. at Battleship Park. And June the 6th through the 7th, 6 p.m. until 2 a.m. on LaSure Road.
Oh, that needs to be midnight, 12.
Okay.
Public hearings. Today is a public hearing to declare the structure at 1416 Old Shell Road a public nuisance and order it demolished. Today is also a public hearing for application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate a taxi cab service. Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Brian McMillan, the effect violence has on businesses in the city. Sabrina Mass, affordable housing, ARP, procedures and concerns for reporting and naming buildings, places after people. Deborah Ann Crabtree, provide information about National Day of Prayer observance at Brooklyn by the Bay. Ordinance is held over. 64015, consider rezoning property located at 3300 Knollwood Drive from R1 and B1 to R3.
Mr. President,
Mr. Woods.
at the, obviously this has been laid over, held over, 2 weeks, had the initial read laid over at the request of the applicant. At this time, the applicant's requesting another 30 days to gather and hold public meetings in the area to try to discuss the rezoning and also paint or I guess communicate kind of what the vision of the area that they have for the rezoning would be. So I just really to try to get everybody on the same page. I'm in favor of laying this over 30 days if everybody's willing to do it.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, Madam Clerk.
25018, amend Chapter 25, Article 1, Garbage and Trash, Section 5, Household Garbage, and Article 3, Enforcement, Section 33, Penalties of the Mobile City Code.
Mr. President.
Ms. Woods.
I would potentially, I'll know here shortly, but potentially look to lay this over just till next week. Since the end of last week, I'm going into this week. I seem to have cracked an egg, not negatively, but cracked an egg by looking at Chapter 25. There's a couple things that may need to be fine tweaked and possibly amended in what I initially had out there. Nothing substantial, just really times, and then also possibly delineating and separating fines. Definitely take the whole 3 months or potential 3 months of jail time off the table there. Let's take that out, but possibly separating the fees that's associated with if you leave your garbage cart out too early or too late versus, if you just pull up and put a pile of trash on the side of the road. So that's kind of came to light. And also having to do with maybe potentially spelling out what happens when a property becomes vacant and there's trash and everything. So possibly needing a little bit more time, but I would look to probably lay this over for at least 1 week so that I can work with Public Works and some of my fellow colleagues here to try to fine tune a couple items on there. So
1 week or 2 weeks?
Let's just do 1 week. It's the discussions are ongoing and kind of know what we need to do. It's just really getting the language right.
Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. I had mentioned to Councilman Woods a couple of things. Since this had come up, I didn't want to get in the way of the particular amendments and slow that down. But he mentioned when properties become vacant, like evictions. I had something happen recently. And when they come in and just take all of the belongings out and throw them on the yard, what happens then? So if there was a way for us to work on some sort of resolution to that. I had spoken to Chief Barber about it, and he said that perhaps the sheriff's office could be convinced to alert the city when something like this happens, so then that the city could be on standby to go and clean up. That might be a possibility, but we may want to look at actually putting it into this ordinance. And then contribution bins or donation bins that you see in parking lots, they become nothing more than just a trash pile. People just go, they just leave it there, and then the bins are never collected, and it becomes just a huge mess, and then the city has to step in. I just reported one. And then the illegal dumping, as we all know, continues to go on. We have our favorite dumping sites, illegal dumping sites all around the city. So we've just got to get a handle on these things and not continue talking about we've got to do something. That's our phrase. We've got to do something. So instead of just continuing to talk, let's put something in and make it actually happen throughout the city. I think that will help.
All right.
And instead of derailing what you're doing here, Josh, maybe we come back with separate amendments on this.
Yeah, council, I do want to advise y'all that on the illegal dumping of tires, we finally have gotten,
The tires too, yes.
we finally gotten the authorization through the state, the bill passed so that we can enforce these tire manifests and make sure that they're keeping an inventory and how they're being disposed of. We were unable to do that until this year, but it did pass. There's also a debris bill to where if the yard is full of debris, that they can be cited as well.
Penn, then Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to join in with my colleague, Vice President Gregory. This illegal dumping, one of my concerns is that when they are picking the trash up, are they, of course, they have to see the other trash that's on the street. Are they not reporting it? I just don't understand why it just continues to sit there for so long. I know we're finding people trying to find out, but it's a problem because the residents still have to deal with it. They have to wake up and they have to see this mess on a regular basis. What is the guidelines? Are the people who are already picking up the regular trash, are they not reporting it to get something done?
Well, the illegal dumping, they do try to identify who's responsible for it, but the instructions or the guidelines to Public Works and Shonda's here is that if it's in our right of way, we're going to pick it up anyway, even if it was an illegal dump. But if we can identify the offender, we'll take action on the offender.
Well,
Is that right, Shonda?
yeah, because it seems like it's taking a little, because I have seen personally where trash pickup that day is taking place, and say it's a vacant house and people is dumping that trash on that vacant house, and they'll pass that trash, and then I get a phone call, and then now I got to go through this process of trying to get this trash picked up.
So, and Gina and I have talked a lot about this. It becomes to be able to hold and enforce them, and David probably can chime in. When we see that there's a dump pile that's not supposed to be there, and there's going to be enforcement, we have to notify the owners and give them the right opportunity to come pick it up. So that, I think it's like a 2 or 3 day window. If we pick it up before they have the opportunity to pick it up, there's no way to find them. And so that's kind of like the conversation Gina was saying, and I know Matt sent that email, where we need to have is the goal to pick, because if we keep picking it up, they're going to keep dumping it. So how do we hold the owners or the people at that property accountable? So a lot of times, like we had one incident, the owner did not live in the city, they lived in Atlanta. So we sent them an email, we sent them a letter, a certified letter to say, hey, you need to, pick up your users or renters have dumped this in the property. You got 3 days from the time you get this to actually pick this up. If we pick it up before they pick it up, and that's what we end up doing, because I can get it. I live in a house, and if my neighbors, I want that stuff gone. So we have to figure out a way of, can we find them on the front end and just find them because it's there? And so when we get there, if we pick it up, we find you got to pay for it regardless. Right now, the ordinance doesn't read that way. And so we have to figure out how we want to address that. But again, we also have to be willing to be ready to find and enforce and hold it, because otherwise we can't change behaviors if we just keep going to pick it up.
Yeah, I thank you, Shonda, for that information. And I think that's vital. I think we need to look from legal perspective. So as our attorneys, with our attorney and then Ricardo that represent the administration to look into that matters and see if we can do that, because I think it's taking too long, and our residents have to deal with this, and we need to figure out if we can find them before that and pick that trash up. We don't need to leave this trash, and our residents have to see this mess. So we got to find them before that. Then hey, they need to know what's going on. Put some cameras on their house so they can see what's taking place on their property. But our residents don't need to see and have to deal with this. Thank you, Mr. President. And thank you, Shonda, for clarifying.
Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. The new capability, we got, great job, everybody, getting that through the House, Senate, and signed by the governor for the tires, the enforcement of tires, and this expanded lien process for litter. Because we do have this new capability, are y'all going to make any administrative changes on your end, say adding any staff, rearranging, what departments are going to oversee this so that we can really be effective with it?
We actually onboarded a retired police officer to do tire enforcement before we realized that we couldn't do it. And so it's going to be assigned to Jamie Roberts' group, David Doffenbach, and they've already got the personnel to enforce the tires. We just didn't have the legislation.
All right, and then this expanded
Debris.
access to property to address excessive debris. Are y'all adding any personnel? to
We've
handle
added
that?
2 new inspectors.
2 new inspectors, and so that'll be under David Doffenbach's department as well.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk.
CIP resolutions held over 09609, transfer funds from Capital Project D1 Mobile CIP Greenway Initiative to Capital Project D1 US 45 median improvements. 21611, authorized contract with McCrory and Williams for repair and stabilization of erosion areas at Azalea Golf Course and 12 Mile Creek.
Mr. President,
Yeah, Mr. Penn.
can we go back to 09609, transfer of funds to capital improvement D1 Mobile Capital Improvement Greenway Initiative project? Is Nick here? Or can someone give an update to this right here, project?
Yes, so this is a transfer. This is a transfer to help prop up that US 45 highway project. As we got into it, we had to add a pedestrian bridge over one of the creeks there. And we haven't realized an overrun yet, but we anticipate when we get to the asphalt paving of it that we will. Just kind of as a reminder, this is one of those roads it's partly a city road, it's partly a state road, it's a municipal connecting link. AlDOT is actually paying for the top layer of asphalt, but everything else that's being added onto that project is city funded. So it's a streetscapes type project like we've done in other parts of the town. So with that anticipation of that overrun coming because of the addition of that pedestrian bridge and some other things that we found during construction, that's why we're asking for this transfer to take place. Projects were progressing pretty nicely. These projects like this are very heavy lifts, and that you're adding curb and gutter, you're adding sidewalks. I mean, you're doing the equivalent of some of these much larger roadway projects, but just not everything underneath. They're actually paving today, and over the next couple of days, they're doing paving 2 of the lanes where they can switch traffic over and kind of finish and heading towards that last side of it, all the concrete work that's taking place.
Well, thank you, Nick. And I want to say thank you to the administration for this particular project. It's something that I've been working on since I got into office. And this morning I went out there to see what was taking place, and it is beautiful to see sidewalks on both sides working on Highway 45. They said this would never happen. And I believe this is the gateway into the city of Mobile. And it should be beautiful. It should be excellence. We're going to have a bridge, curve and gutter. I used to walk that way as a kid. Had to be in the middle of the street sometimes. But now kids don't have to be in the middle of the street. They'll be able to take sidewalks. They can be able to ride bicycles and enjoy this environment. And so again, I want to say thank you to the administration for your support in this initiative. Great things has happened in District 1. Thank you, Mr. President.
You get on mic, Mr. All right, Madam Clerk.
Resolutions held over 01612, rescind resolution 01793, adopted November 10, 2020, and allocate $1,500,000 to capital improvements reserve and capital improvement fund. 01613, authorize amendment number 2 to the agreement with WSP for mobile area stormwater mapping and resiliency planning. 08614, accept bid awards for limestone aggregate. 08616, approve purchase order to Deere and Company for utility tractor for Parks Department. 09619, reallocate funds from capital project in the capital improvement fund to various capital projects.
Mr.
21620.
President.
Yeah, Ms. Woods.
I know over the last week, we talked about the cameras going into the crew or into the parking deck. And I know we had some discussion a little bit about kind of the cost of the cameras. I've gotten probably a handful of emails this week. Could we possibly elaborate, I guess, of what the cost associated with those cameras are a little bit of, it just seems like for that 130 some odd cameras, that is a good chunk of money. Is there some color we can add as far as, I guess why the cameras are a little bit more pricier, I guess? And I do know that
I really can't tell you about those cameras, but I can tell you about cameras because in the last 2 weeks, I've become very familiar with them. You'll see later on in the agenda that there's a thing for 300,000. Each camera is, if it's a PTZ, is about $4,500 once constructed with all the accoutrements to keep it from getting weather. If it's a standalone camera, it's somewhere between $28,000 and $3,000. Fiber is approximately $26 a foot to run. So if you can do the math, if you start doing the math, how many cameras you got, how much money it's gonna come up to really quick. And any construction, if they do it pre-construction, us coming to do it post-construction, it's gonna cut the price with labor in probably half to a third. So why I don't know exactly about that. That's how much cameras cost. And we'll be discussing cameras well into 2-3 years from now as we try to address the camera issues throughout the city.
Mr. Davis.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Mr. Lasky. I appreciate your sharing that information with us. And I particularly appreciate the effort to get these cameras installed in the parking deck. As we all agree, our first obligation to the people we serve is public safety. And we have had instances in the past where people were accosted in parking garages. And I think it's very important that we have up-to-date security arrangements for the parking deck. Thank you very much.
Mr. Penn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm gonna be honest. When I saw the amount, I wasn't here on last week. I was on vacation with my kids for spring break. I was one too happy, with that amount at first, looking at it, because I want to get understanding with everything took place. Y'all already know what's been taking place in our city and our community. But what I would like to say is I reached out to the administration and I requested that we need to make sure that the rest of our city will have the support with cameras and make sure everything is up to date. And on this agenda, and our amazing clerk will read it later on 09653, we can see 300,000 is on there. That let me know that our city is working towards making sure that we provide every resource to make sure that we're providing for the parking lot as well as updating and making sure some things are in place for our parks. Rex and City of, so I'm gonna wait till we get to that line item to ask some questions about that, to make sure, everybody from a public understand that, but I wanted to make sure that the public understands that we're not just focusing on a parking deck, but we also is focusing on getting everything up to date at our parks as well as our facilities. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, Madam Clerk.
21-620, authorized contract with Thomas Industries for cruise terminal parking deck repairs. 21-621, authorized contract with Waste Pro USA for dumpster services at various city locations. 35-622, authorized extension of temporary site lease with New Singular Wireless PCS for installation of new cell facility at the cruise terminal. 60-623,
Let
authorized.
me just go back to 21-620. Mr. Mayor, I know that last week at the breakfast, you had mentioned about the future about the parking deck. And we see that we have $428,000 on here. Is this parking deck is something like similar close to the Civic Center, like it used to be?
Okay, so the difference of two types of parking decks. One is got it. There's the precast deck, and that's the one at the cruise terminal is precast versus what we're doing at the arena. It's a cast in place.
Let me correct that.
Yeah.
When I meant the same thing at the Civic Center, the Civic Center was a place that we're pouring a lot of money into. Are we pouring a lot of money into the cruise terminal parking deck? That's my question.
Yes, we are pouring an abnormal amount of money into the maintenance of the cruise terminal parking deck. And it's because it was a precast deck. And what happens is that you end up having some rebar that gets exposed. You have some of the concrete that sloughs off. And so we have been spending, I think I'm correct saying, about $300,000 a year on maintenance of the parking deck. Now, it's faster to put up. It's cheaper on the front end to do precast. And so my comment at the breakfast of the morning is that as we have, I'm going to say, tried to look for solutions on how to have additional parking for cruising, with the belief that if we had more parking, we could have a second ship right now, is a belief. Well, there's really not another footprint that you want to take up, let's say, along the waterfront with a parking deck. So the solution may be that you tear that parking deck down and build it a couple of stories higher, maybe a little bit wider than what it is, in order to be able to handle two cruise ships. If we choose to do something like that going forward, it's a high probability that the cruise lines may help pay for that. But if they help pay for that, they're going to want some of the income off of it to offset their investment. But I think it's finally, I think that we have a solution, whereas we've been looking at it from off and on, whether you can just add on to that one to make it taller, and you really can't the way it's designed. So my hope is that as we look at those opportunities for additional cruise ships, that we'll come up with a plan to possibly tear that one down and do it cast in place, like we're doing at the Civic Center.
Okay.
Okay. That answer the question?
Yes, sir. That's what I was wanting to ask, is we just throwing a whole lot of money into it like we was doing at the Civic Center.
That's
You know,
right.
it's just cheaper, like, to tear down the Civic Center and build a new one versus,
No.
we need to tear down this parking deck and build a new parking deck. That's something that we need to look at in the future.
So I'll get Captain Snowden to really look back and give us hard numbers on what that is. And, as to today, if you don't look at that maintenance cost, I mean, you have significant revenue coming in from the parking deck.
Mr. Carroll.
Mr. President, if I remember right, in the mid to late 90s, when that deck was designed, it was designed to be 2 stories higher than what it is.
It is not.
It's not.
It is not. We've checked it
So
2 or 3 different times.
was it White Spunner that?
White Spunner did,
Right,
and
and
he's
they
gone
were-
back and looked at it.
He's gone back and looked
Yeah.
at it. I don't know if we or Trademark bid that job during that time, but I remember the conversation surrounding it. And at that time, I believe it was supposed to have been 2 stories higher than what it was. I don't know
Yeah.
what they did up into the bid time of that job. Also, the site was chosen for its ability to expand the deck. So I'm guessing that I don't even remember who the architects were,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing that that site, I would assume would be conducive to enlarging the site, but somewhere in the back of my head, I do remember that facility being, or that area being conducive to a design that was 2 stories taller than what
There
it
was other institutional knowledge that thought that also within the city, but we've gone back and looked. I mean, we've pulled back every layer of that onion, and what was built, you cannot add on to. And as you know, that from a standpoint of building another deck, if you would go higher, then you probably have to have more piling or something, but it would support it. There's a way to engineer it. But we are where we are.
Yeah, the cost of surrounding the engineering on the building that doesn't support the above structure doesn't weigh. So if you're going to make it bigger, you're probably going to have to tear it down if the original building wasn't designed for
Yeah,
the
you would-
additional 2
yeah.
stories.
Okay.
Madam Clerk?
60623, authorized settlement agreement and release of claims. 21631, correct resolution 21571, adopted April 15, 2025. Consent resolutions being introduced. 03632, reappoint Richard Meadows to the Electrical Examiners Board. 37633, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a lounge retail liquor Class 1 license to Alabama Music Box on Conti Street. 40634, declare the structure at 1416 Nocia Road a public nuisance and order it demolished. 09635 through 641, transferring funds from districts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 to discretionary, from discretionary accounts to Heroes Park to assist with upcoming events. 642, determine the appropriation to Palmer Pillins, and 643, determine appropriation to Quilt Savella, serve a public purpose, and approve payment. 09658, transfer funds from District 6 discretionary account to Heroes Park to assist with upcoming events. CIP, we've been asked to add one, which is affirming the Board, Medical Clinic Board of Mobile Spring Hill. They have 3 members that need to be affirmed this week so they can transact business. CIP resolutions being introduced. 08644, approved purchase order to Gray Bar Electric for streetlight luminaries, $169,800.02. Resolutions being introduced. 01645, authorized master services agreement with Sawgrass Consulting for 2025 CIP citywide street assessment, $420,000.
Mr. President.
Dave's, was it Dave's or, okay, Woods and Gregory.
I'd just like to get a overview of this from Mr. Amberger or Mr. Forrester. But let me preface the overview by saying that I fully support this. I think the initial street assessment we did, whenever it was, 6, 7, 8 years ago, has been very, very valuable. I've found it valuable not only in helping me to determine which streets in the district need to be repaved in what order and precedence and that kind of thing, but also when I have constituents. The truth of the matter is that everybody in the city of Mobile thinks the street in front of their house or business needs to be repaved. And you've got to have some rational, independent basis for deciding what you're going to do. And it's been very helpful to me in responding to those requests. So, Mr. Forrest.
Yes, the street assessment is taking out the subjectivity, make it more objective. This is just a continuation of the street assessment. Over the last 5 years, we've spent $63 million, roughly about $63 million in a resurfacing program. We anticipate spending more than that in this next 5 years. And so what this contract will do, we'll take that street assessment that we've completed and prioritize the streets, help build the 5-year program with tighter budgets. And so when we sit down with each one of you, and so when we come up with a plan based on using the street assessment contract here, and you build out your 5-year program, look at your priorities, and get some tighter budgets, projecting out increased costs. Because when we did the original 5-year plan, this is pre-COVID, so we saw a lot of, fluctuations in costs that we just couldn't account for. So, we're going to hopefully get tighter budgets for the next 3 years, for instance. And so, we've just got some results back this morning on the field work. And just for instance, in the condition of the streets are identified as, excellent. That, in 2018, 2019, it was roughly around 10%, and we've increased that to 20%. And the streets that were identified as very poor were like 1%, like almost 2%. We're down to less than 0.5%. So we're seeing the value of this resurfacing program, and this just helps prioritize that.
And that was my question. I knew that we had spent some money already. We spent the money, and I think I asked that the last time. The field work's already been being done or almost
Like
done.
I said, we just got the results back this morning, about 20 minutes ago. So we're going to go through those numbers, and we're going to produce the maps. And this will help us just expedite our process and get a cleaner, tighter version, and anticipate some increased cost in 2 or 3 years down the road.
Really kind of diving down into the overall cost of addressing the situations that we have, and then making a better plan for it come down.
Yes.
And then that did, and just for clarification, that did include newly annexed areas as well into our new assessment.
Right. Yeah. We've covered all the city maintained streets have been rated, and yes.
Gotcha. And I can't brag about that. I mean, I call that my District 6 repaving Bible. So anytime anybody has an issue, pull the book out.
Oh, it's been great to have. And this money's already been budgeted for, and so this is just carry through.
And then Penn.
Yeah, you pretty much answered my questions because I was wondering where exactly we were in this process because I knew work was underway. So the results will be ready for us then to plan our next resurfacing program.
Yeah. Once this contract gets approved, hopefully within just a few, 6 weeks or so, we're going to expedite getting this out, setting up meetings with each one of you, to develop your program.
Okay, yeah, that'll be great. Appreciate it.
Penn, then Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. You kind of answered the question. I'm glad it's already budgeted. That was in it, but I guess I'm not an engineer, so when I ask this question, you kind of give me. I don't understand. Like, so we did this 5 years ago, right?
Yes.
Okay. So if we did it 5 years ago, like the streets that I'm sure we have, of course, haven't paved all the streets. So when the streets that we have paved already, they will move off the list. Then the streets that was in bad, was graded low, they will move up.
Yeah. So one of the deliverables on this contract.
Why do we need to do it again? So I guess that's my mindset.
It was actually about 7 years ago we did the assessment, the initial assessment, and so a life cycle of a street, a heavily used street is about 7 years. It needs to be resurfaced every 7 years. Residential streets, you can go 10, 12 years probably.
Yeah, streets age at different rates. So you could have a street that was okay 7 or 8 years ago, but now is not okay. But another street that was poor is still poor. They don't age at the same rate.
I get it. I'm just saying. We just talking so I can have more clarity, Joe. But so Joe, I'm using this example. So we just paved the street. We know that street done. We haven't paved this street. If it was in bad condition, then we need to pave this street. It got worse over time. I don't need somebody to come tell me that street didn't get worse. I know it got worse. If it's been 7 years,
But
and it
it's
ain't
different
been
streets now.
The one done 7 years ago was a snapshot in that time, and the one done this previous year is a snapshot in this time, and so the value in having these and knowing how much money we've spent in the interim, it shows the improvement. But, and also, and Joel's right, streets age differently and depending on the use, depending on, subsurface factors, utilities, and it just helps us.
So it's doing all that as
It
well.
also helps us not, so we're not going out spending, $1 million in this neighborhood or this area when there's actually a better use of those funds into another area that's just should be prioritized differently. And, to the eye, this just helps, make it, more objectified. Yeah.
So it's not just looking at the conditions of the surface level, because you said
With the street assessment, it evaluates, stresses in in asphalt and the concrete. And
That's it?
identifies, proper repair procedures.
but you mentioned about the inners, like if something going underground issues.
Yeah, you'll see evidence of like failed infrastructure. It'll propagate up to the surface, and when we're doing the street assessments, we identify those also and incorporate that into the resurfacing plan. So we're not just paving over something that's just going to fail immediately because we didn't address what was going on underneath.
And the reason why I'm asking is I just want to be able to explain this to constituents for someone, thinking like me, like if we're not paving all the streets and we're just moving up, why do I got to send somebody else out there to pay this amount of money? But now it's making more sense to me if you're saying that we sending somebody out there to look, because infrastructure, it could be infrastructure failure in these 7 years that move another street up, and we haven't looked at that particular street.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the map from the last, street assessment. What we'll do, we'll have just your district, highlighted, and you'll see it's color coded. So like green means good, yellow means poor, red means terrible. So you can get a visual of where you're in your district, where we need to be focused on our efforts. It helps visualize, visualize that. And what this is going to do is help prioritize, make the most for the money in these areas, to increase the overall, value of your pavement.
Gotcha.
John, thank you. This contract is a master service agreement, and will these contractors be utilized to assign a cost associated with certain streets?
Yes.
Okay, so we've got our field work back from the previous contract, and that's already been created into a map, or will these guys be creating it in?
No, the map will be created from what was already previously done.
Okay.
And we're just taking this map and these values and going out and doing deeper dive into the estimates.
All right, so these guys will be used to help us prioritize and give us accurate pricing for a 3-year plan.
Yeah, well, it'd be a 5-year.
A 5
Yeah, so the even years, we're going to do the city funded, the CIP resurfacing programs where we focus mainly on residential areas, and then in the odd years, or for the county ask for the pay as you go, we'll send up a big wish list but we'll have it prioritized, and then it's up to the county to decide that. But
this will prepare us to be able to get funding from anybody, because we already have our plan in place.
Yeah,
With
exactly.
a dollar amount assigned to it, and we say we want to tackle this chunk of resurfacing right now, and this is how much it costs, and this is what it's going to.
Yeah. If another funding source pops up and we've already, we didn't have this group of streets identified in the 5-year plan, we could supplement using additional funding, and we would have good estimates. So you can quickly, make, judgments and assessments.
And even from our planning standpoint, I could say, sit down with you or whoever and say, all right, we're going to put $3 million into resurfacing this year. Let's find our $3 million worth of roads. And we can just go in there and pick those roads to a total of $3 million.
Yes.
After this.
Yes.
I love it. Thank you for doing it.
Anyone else? Mr. Carroll?
Well, look, guys, I really appreciate y'all, what y'all do. Especially after meeting with y'all out in Africatown last week and trying to get that road situated so that they can get those new houses out there. I had a professor that once told me to look at asphalt like tar because it has a different modulus of elasticity based on concrete, and heat from the sun tends to bake our roads in the South a little bit different than everywhere else. And when you have a bunch of cars on one road, the cars tend to embed themselves in the asphalt and causing the asphalt to separate, especially on streets like Washington Avenue and Broad Street and Wilkerson and Congress Street. So we tend to pave those streets a little bit more than we do the neighborhood streets. But however, we do have some streets in the district that are in dire need. And I think that the point system that we have in place works, especially when it comes to priority. Sometimes we do have to go back on priority every third year, depending on where we are in a 7-year process. And that's what I think he was trying to say is when it comes to the way the asphalt reacts to the heat, the number of cars that go over it. My next priority, as everybody knows, that we're in Hannon, Conti, McGill now, but we're going to swap over to downtown and Detente, Hallett, Common, and all those streets in the next cycle. But I really appreciate it, and I appreciate the scoring system. But the other thing is that when we do these streets, sometimes the scoring system with the sidewalks don't match the streets. I was looking at that last night, and I was wondering, how do we get the sidewalk curb system to match the scoring system of the streets? And I know we've been trying to do it all at the same time, but there are some streets that they don't look like they match up.
Well, especially in your district and, heavy trees, it's very difficult to assign the value, correlate the two, because, you can have a street that's in very good condition, but, the sidewalks are deplorable due to the trees or, and also, some of the, the residents, if they'll, if as they drive on it and park on the sidewalk, and also utility cuts, but it's a separate venture there to assign a value to sidewalks. But in the resurfacing program, we also identified the curb conditions, and we'll address those as we develop these resurfacing programs. So and part of this is we're going to neighborhood, take a tighter look. We'll look at the condition of the curb and gutter and identify sections that need to be cut, replaced, and upgrade the sidewalk ramps, ADA ramps. So this is what this will do.
Again, I appreciate it, but I guess I'm going to ask now that this contractor that we're trying to hire, you said he was providing the pre-construction services when it comes to cost and associated cost. Is there a way to also have the cost of the sidewalk in a parallel to that, just in case we need to add a little bit more money to the project for the sidewalk?
Well, the value in having a master service agreement, we can issue a task order to, we can sit down with you, and if there's areas that you want us to focus on, we can do individual, task order for them to evaluate, your district.
That's really the exact reason for this secondary contract, because a street probably in the downtown area versus one out in West Mobile, it may have more other secondary things that typically the smaller contractors, the subcontractors are doing. So the street assessment is what's driving us to that street, because the road itself needs to be paved. But a road that has one sidewalk ADA ramp versus one that's got 15, it's going to cost more. So taking the physical data that's identified the streets themselves that need to be made, and then coupling that with these estimating services, we'll get those maps that y'all have historically seen. When you sit down with us and you look at these maps, they've already got a dollar figure on it. That's what makes it quick and efficient for you, where we've grouped areas. If it's an entire neighborhood, we've grouped that together to say this neighborhood cost X. Well, that should include all of those other incidentals, of those sidewalk upgrades, in a lot of cases, some drainage upgrades as well. And that's that's, you know, that's what the purpose of this secondary contract is, so that when y'all see it, you've got a easy map to look at either groupings of streets, or, you know, lump sum chunks, or when we get to a pay-as-you-go situation where we're looking at long linear segments. So we're trying to put everything in there so that we're doing a better final product, and we're being proactive instead of reactive. So a lot of times we're fixing broken curbs, we're fixing broken inlet tops. Those are things that nobody is called in about. Nobody's complaining about it. It's just, we know that it needs to be done, and we incorporate it into that project. So that's kind of how it all comes together.
Thanks. It really, when you read it, it doesn't spell out all of that unless you know what specific words you're looking for. When you hear pre-construction services, estimated costs, I kind of have an idea in my mind simply because I'm kind of industry standard and I know what the buzzwords are, but the general public really doesn't know that. And a lot of times when we see things as a council, we don't know you have it all included. So I appreciate that clarification. Look really forward to getting some of these streets in my district done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's been a great program. I think when John presents to y'all in the coming weeks, the outcome of the previous street assessment compared to the new one, I think you're going to find collectively a lot of progress has been made.
I agree with that, but because we're in District 2 and we're so old, man, we never have enough money to get as much done as some of the western districts.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right, Madam Clerk. Oh, Mr. Mayor.
So when we started this and the first assessment, the streets were scored A, B, C, D, E, F. And so you think immediately, well, let's go fix all these F streets. Well, it may be that some of those F streets don't have but 300 cars a day running on it. And as it was explained initially, is that on your major corridors, let's take Airport Boulevard. Okay, so we repaved it a couple of years ago. So in your mind, because it was 5 to 7 years ago we did assessment, we've repaved it, it ought to be fine, or to be an A street. We may find out that it's a B street because of the 30,000 or 40,000 cars that go on it, okay? And also, they would explain to you that you really don't want a street like that to go from a C to a D, because if it's a D street, if a major thoroughfare goes to a D, the cost of repairing it is greater, if you let it drop below a certain level. So as you continue this program, you'll have 0.5% of the streets of Fs now. Hopefully you have no Fs at some point. And then, so you start addressing this, and that just helps you do the priority. But the amount of traffic on it has a lot to do with everything else, what they've said. And so even though you may have just repaved it, a year later, you can see deterioration possibly. Yeah. I don't know if that helps you explain it to your constituents, but that's the only reason I mentioned that.
Yeah, Mayor, that definitely helps. And John and Nick both explained it well. It's just, I want to make sure, this is my first time going through renewing it, and want to make sure I have clarity anytime explaining to our constituents. And so y'all just share that information. That's great. I'm glad I'll be able to explain that well to them. So thank y'all so much.
Vice President.
I was just going to follow up with what the mayor said, because a lot of times people will see certain thoroughfares being resurfaced and you'll hear, well, didn't you just resurface that street? Yeah, about 2 or 3 years ago. Well, why are you redoing it now? Well, it's for the very reason that the mayor mentioned. It's because of the traffic load, the wear and tear, and because it's a major thoroughfare, you can't let it get into such bad condition that it just ups the cost so much because of all the repairs that have to be made. So yeah, those major traffic thoroughfares, the traffic corridors do tend to get resurfaced a little bit more often because you have to keep them up.
Mr. Days.
Yeah, I'd just say that a perfect example of what we're talking about is Dolphin Street, just west of Broad Street, from Broad to Fulton, which we repaved 7 years ago, something like that, 6 or 7 years ago. And it's bumpity again. So it gets a lot of traffic. Well, no, but it isn't just the cuts. It's just gets a lot of, it's all the things we've been talking about. What's underneath it, the volume of traffic, all that kind of thing.
Which, excuse me, Mr. President, but which brings us back to, have we done anything with Maz about Dolphin Street and the line failing going down the center of the lane on the westbound lanes, where we have countless potholes now from McPhillips all the way to Fulton Street? Have we gotten some type of agreement in place to get that work done and take corrective action so that they don't keep reoccurring?
Short answer is yes, but that's a bigger conversation
mean,
Okay.
short answer is yes, we can talk more offline and tell you where we are, what's going on with the second one. That's section, all of Dolphin Street. It's a much bigger conversation.
Have they given us any idea as to when they're going to start addressing the potholes?
Let us catch y'all offline. This conversation, it's much bigger than a two-second response.
Madam Clerk?
08646, approve item base bid for medical equipment. 08647 and 648, approve purchase order to Beard Equipment Company, $51,940 and $55,382.52. 08649, approve purchase order to Jerry Pate Turf and Irrigation of $92,165.57. 08650, approve purchase order to Site One Landscape Supply, $76,170. 08651, approve purchase order to UJ Chevrolet, $17,288.67. 09652, transfer funds from Civic Center new parking facility project to Civic Center marketing project for Civic Center new construction and demo project, $430,434.17.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds?
just want to understand this, is that we're moving 177,000 from the parking facility and 252,000 to the Civic Center marketing project to the Civic Center new construction and demo project. Why? Well, I guess I want to know why that's all happening.
Yeah, Councilman Reynolds, those funds are currently unencumbered and those accounts are essentially complete. So that money's going to be reallocated over to the construction account. And that's to cover some additional costs on the mural relocations. And then there was some additional surcharge quantity for the new arena pad. And then that also includes $144,000 for taking material that was going to be hauled off site as surplus material and disposed of. We're going to haul that material to Azalea Road for the new fire station project. So even though that's a $144,000 cost increase on the arena project, it's going to save you about $300,000 on the Azalea Road fire station project because you won't have to buy that structural fill material.
So do I understand that this $177,000 that's left over in the Civic Center parking facility project, I guess essentially is offsetting that camera cost in some capacity of $486,000. There's $177,000 still in that parking facility project. And then we make a transfer requesting another $486,000 for the cameras. I guess I'm trying to understand that.
The cameras, that's separate. So that's coming out of, I think, public safety but so the 177 we're moving is the surplus in that account. Since the parking deck is near completion, that money's not needed in that account. So it'll be moved over. And then once we increase those funds and then close out Sabre Demolition's contract, the demo cost, the total contract for Sabre will be up to about 6.2 million approximately versus original 8.2 estimate, budget estimate. So even with those, moving those funds over to that contract, you're still going to be about 1.9 million under budget on the demolition.
Okay, thank you.
Sam, did you say we were moving material? Dirt, right?
Dirt. Yeah.
And
So
dirt from this project, which was paid for by this project?
yes, so the dirt that's being moved when Sabre's contract, their design required them to leave the site at a certain elevation. So to get to that elevation, they had to cut about 20,000 yards of material and dispose of it.
Okay.
Rather than dispose of it, the city opted to
take that material and create a stockpile, a properly managed stockpile over to Zelia Road to use that material on the fire station project.
I missed the word dispose. I missed the word undercut and dispose. That's fine. I was going to say if we bought the dirt, then the project should be selling the dirt to the next project for the cost of accounting in the system so that we were tracking it properly. But if it was undercut and then disposed,
Yeah.
it was going to a pit somewhere anyway.
Right.
So I'm fine.
All right, thank you.
09653, transfer funds from Police Department Support Services Division to Public Safety Administrative Division for security camera system improvements for city parks, $300,000.
Mr. President,
Mr.
can we get an update for public safety with this?
So with respect to city cameras, the city has about 1,500 cameras in their inventory. 550 of them belong to the GCTC and the police department. All those cameras are operational, recording, and have a service contract on them. With the remaining 950 cameras in the city, that belongs to 3 different departments and has 8 different operating systems. Also, some of them are pre-2019 cameras, so they're non-NDA compliant. Approximately 330 of those are in the Parks and Rec department, covering their community centers and the parks. 64 of those cameras are either not working or not recording. And that's where so right now I have TAC Intel doing surveys of the parks, finding out where those cameras are. I also have people climbing the poles, finding if those cameras are operable or the NDA compliant or not, and how they're being recorded. We are then trying to design a system to cover the parks the most efficiently and effectively way we can, and add and install new cameras that record to the system. Because as you've heard before, back in late 2023, Scott Kearney started a progress to capture all the back end or all the data from the cameras and record it on servers across the city. So this is, again, there's 950 cameras that we have to look at. We are concentrating with the parks first. We are concentrating with the 64 that are not working in the parks first, and we're getting to them as quick as we can. The $300,000 will go to ordering 2 different types of cameras, a static camera and a PTZ, a point, tilt, and zoom camera, plus fiber at $27 a foot. We got to get, first of all, we'll make an order as soon as possible, as soon as we get the money. And once we get the cameras, the camera equipment in, we'll start manufacturing the cameras, put them together, and putting them up. Since the Langham Park shooting, we've, based upon what we had in inventory, the police department replaced or installed 30 cameras in the parks, including running the fiber. We will continue to do so as quick as we can, but this project with 950 cameras is going to take a lot of time and a lot of money.
Director Lasky, thank you for the update. You said 2 different type of cameras. Can you give me those cameras?
One's going to be a static camera, meaning a camera that just sits in one place and takes a picture of what it is. The other one's a PTZ, point, tilt, and zoom. And those are the ones that you can control. You can move around. Zoom in, zoom out, point it where you want to put it.
And these will be both of these type of cameras will be at our parks.
Correct.
So is somebody back doing the zooming and panning to?
As they need to, they will have the opportunity to log into that camera and point it, tilt it, zoom in and out as they want to.
Somebody will have to be doing that manually.
Correct. They're not, all these cameras are not going to be monitored on a 24/7 basis. They'll be recorded. Okay. And we'll use TAC Intel to determine the best location for the camera and the best angle and resolution, or how far in or out that we're going to go with the cameras. But again, this problem got established over many years as other departments start putting up cameras with not recognizing what the long-term ramifications are. Thanks to Scott Kearney back in 2023, understood what we needed to do with the data, got that process underway. And now that Public safety will take over all the cameras eventually. Again, it's going to take time. It's going to take money. We are hiring, in addition, tech to come and help deal with these cameras and look at them and install them. But again, this is not going to be a quick fix solution. We're also going to put out a RFP request for a company to assist us with that. And when these cameras go down, we'll come out and can fix them or triage them in the best way we can.
While I have you here, this past week, again, I wasn't here. And first of all, to the family of Craig family, I want to let you know my thoughts and prayers are with you with the incident that occurred at Sage Park. Want to let the community know that saddened. And if you know anything, you need to contact MPD. And I'm glad to see that we're in the process of having this. That's why I said earlier, I'm gonna be honest, it was a very emotional time for me. I was out there at Sage Park the week before talking to the young people that was at the basketball court enjoying their process. And I want to let the community know that, you know, from my understanding, those young people, they had nothing to do with it. It had nothing to do with the game. They just was out there enjoying themselves and having a good time playing. I've been out there multiple times. And for this to happen, what I would like to hear from the administration, one of the things that I already let Chief know, what I'm requesting is an update. You have given the update with the cameras about, you know, we're putting updates for cameras in our parks. I did see the press conference with the authorities, law enforcement. I appreciate that. Gathering everyone together. I would have been there. But moving forward, I would like to know update and strategy. Are we planning? One of the things I requested is more police presence, especially at our parks that are open after during nighttime, as well as signage. I think Kim Carmody I already started working on that because I requested that. Make sure that we put signage around our parks that it meet certain requirements, from no smoking to no alcohol to no. Make sure we have those signage on our basketball court. So hopefully y'all can answer those questions, but give an update on anything that we're working with the Sage Park or just with our parks, period. So, or with that request, is there anything that you all are putting in place?
Well, I can't talk about signage or what Parks and Rec is doing. We are going to increase patrols over the summertime with respect to the parks that are frequently used after dark, especially those with lights that you can put on. I believe what it is that you press a button and they stay on until 10 o'clock. We're going to increase patrols the best we can with those. We have been talking to our legislators and our congressional people about if there's any additional legislation we can come up with respect to firearms in the parks. Unfortunately, right now, it's going to take somebody in Montgomery to get involved with that because a local ordinance would be unconstitutional prohibiting guns or firearms in the park. But all those conversations have been had. They're ongoing. But with respect to signage or what Parks and Rec is doing, you're going to have to talk to Shonda or Kim.
Okay. Also, so are you telling me that private businesses could say that it's illegal for someone to have a firearm going into their facility, but a government facility can't do the same?
Absolutely. The public facilities that have a 24-hour control of ingress and egress with respect to magnetometers and guards like you do can prohibit firearms. Public schools and post-secondary education can do the same with an athletic event, professional athletic events. But generally speaking, that a city cannot say no guns in the parks.
Well, I will be writing our legislative. I'll be writing our governor. These things need to change. Even I know we changed our laws dealing with permits So our MPD can't even pull, if they see someone with a weapon and they even look underage, they can't even do anything because people don't even have to have permits anymore. All these things, we don't have authority as a city council, but we can reach out to our local legislator, our governors, people in different positions, and write to them and let them know that these things are taking place in our community. And we would like to see change. And that's something that I will be doing as well. I'm also requesting during the summertime that that we work with our young people, that we be active, engaged. It's a lot of young people that's there at that park, and I think that it would be amazing if our MPD and firemen can have a basketball game and just be active. And I'm not saying they're not active, engaged, but there's a lot of young people up there. But go out there and play a game together. I go out there and play too. I got a little skills, but just show that engagement, and go to other parks and have that community relationship. And hopefully now young people will feel comfortable, maybe even talking and sharing some things that took place with our officers. So that's my recommendation. Let's work together. And if any changes or anything or updates made, please let me know so I can push that through my community.
We continue to work with our youth, both in and out of the cars. Our kickball Sundays program has started off again. I could point out to Diallo Green as a recent hire, partnership with the school system to work with our youth. We have our community facilitators out there on the 20, out there working every day. I will say something about that. From everything I've seen throughout this administration has done more to engage the youth and attack prevention and mitigation strategies than any administration prior in the city's history. We have Curtis Graves, who's expanded that program, and we continue to work with the school system everywhere and do as much as we can. And I guess we'll hear some more of that at 1:00. We can go through all the different programs. But we understand that we must engage youth and we must engage them on their turf. And we're doing everything we can possible and adding additional people. Mr. Green's position was actually paid for by the school board or the school system.
Well, I want to join in. I appreciate everything you all are doing, but I think I want to be a part of it. And I think all of us should want to be a part of it. So every initiative that you are, I'm happy to hear at 1 p.m. But I want to be a part of it as well. So let me know what I need to do. I want to be boots on the ground, and I'm already boots on the ground. I'm at every school. But if y'all have things that you all are doing, I want to be a part of it so I can be actively engaged in it. So I guess that's a song, Boots on the Ground.
Where them fans at?
Oh, where the fans at? Oh, I ain't even think about that, but I knew Joe was gonna say that he don't want me to say all this again at 10:00, and I am, Joe, because one reason why, Joe, and I understand Joe what he's saying. Everybody, some people watch the pre-council meeting, and some people watch the council meeting, and people need to have an opportunity to know what's going on in our community and city. It's just being honest. We don't have an evening meeting. And some people take the time to take their lunch break and their meeting and watch it. And they don't have that time. So they're going to go and watch the council meeting and go live. So, Joe, yes, I'm sorry.
right.
We're going to say the same thing again. I'm going to ask you again, Lasky, to come up. So thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Madam Clerk.
21,654 and 655 are authorizing contract with geotechnical engineering, testing, and Harwell Company LLC for 2024 PAYGO.
I have a question.
Madam Vice.
Can we get the final list on on the pay-as-you-go? Which areas in the neighborhoods are actually going to be gone? I know I had my wish list, and as I understand it, some of my wish list has gone somewhere else. And I would just like to know which of my streets are actually going to be done.
Yeah, I can share that with you. On this one in particular, this is for two sections of Hillcrest, from just south of Osmill Creek up to Cottage Hill Road, and then from Airport up to Old Shell Road. And then on Azalea Road from Cottage Hill up to Airport Boulevard. Okay, that helps. And in the coming weeks, we're going to have the two other commission districts. This is just for Commission District 2. So, but yeah, I'll share with you the,
Okay, because I haven't heard my district yet in the list you just gave me. Because I know we have North McGregor is part of the PAYGO, but what else?
yes. Well, you do have that section of Hillcrest
A
from,
little bit of Hillcrest,
up to Old Shell Road, I believe, is that?
Airport of Old Shell,
Yeah.
okay. So those are the only two in my council district that are going to be done from PAYGO.
Oh, and I'll share with you, and we also have, I believe, Eighth Road. I know we have Eighth Road
Okay,
in the Commission District 1.
in one,
Yeah, and
okay. Because I know a big
as
chunk
as
is,
I'm
a big
going through
chunk
my
has
mind
gone to
here.
the airport. So I just wanted to find out which streets in my list are actually.
Yeah,
being done.
after the meeting, yeah, I can, you have the map hanging in your
Okay.
office back there, so I'll, happy to go over that with you.
Okay.
21,656, rescind resolution 21,596, authorizing contract with Darrell Green. 37,657, consider application for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate a taxi cab service. Announcements.
Joshua, want to go ahead and try to schedule a CIP meeting soon with the whole council. I think we need to have some business discussion we need to talk about, especially while they're getting ready for the budget. So if you can go ahead and schedule a CIP meeting real soon. Anything from this council?
Now, we know we've got the 1 o'clock.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Anything from administration? All right. We'll see each other downstairs at 10:30.
CIP committee?